Greetings to everyone, friends. Yesterday, at the meeting of the Temporary Investigative Commission, the head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support was present, and he was asked a lot of interesting questions regarding the general mobilization. Regarding the fact that 3 Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support employees basically beat a father of many children to death, and now an investigation is underway, he was asked a lot of interesting questions. I would like to go through all of them with you now so that you understand what is really happening. Please support the video with your like, comment, and subscription. Thank you to each of you. And let's start with the fact that regarding the death of Oleh Lesin, who was actually that very father of many children who was beaten to death by 3 Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support employees, first of all, it was reported that the entire notification group had only one body camera among the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support employees, and that was it. This body camera was seized by the investigation in order to conduct their investigation. Also, according to the head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support, there were only these 3 Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support employees and 1 police officer in the notification group. It is reported that the police officer was sitting in the car at the moment when the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support employees stopped this victim, now the late Mr. Oleh, on the street. It is unclear how they could have stopped him, on what grounds they could have stopped him, how they could have demanded any document check from him, since this is actually the job of the National Police, and in such a case the police officer's body camera should have been turned on. So there is already a fact of abuse of power by the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support employees, and actually this National Police officer is considered just a witness, not an accomplice in this crime, but simply a witness. Although in fact as a representative of the authorities, as a representative of the law enforcement structure of the National Police, he should have protected Mr. Oleh from the arbitrariness of the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support, which he actually did not do. So, in my opinion, this is just a person who was also complicit, who maybe didn't beat or finish off, but simply did nothing while witnessing this absolutely shocking crime. Next. A lot, lately we have also, how many times have we discussed these news stories, specifically in the Dnipropetrovsk region and in the city of Dnipro. There have been a lot of violations by the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support in recent weeks. Just in the last few weeks, there have been a lot of such cases. But at the same time, the head of the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support says that there are no violations, just that there aren't any. But at first he said there weren't any, and then he said they fixed it and provided him with evidence that there were violations, and there were a lot of them. He said, I didn't say there are 100% no violations, but each case needs to be dealt with separately, and we provided explanations for each case. I want to remind you that for each of these cases and these explanations, in fact, they were very, very deceitful and manipulative. Not a single recording from the body cameras was provided, and by the way, with the body camera, which was the only one. For the entire notification group, for all the employees of the Territorial Recruitment Center, it turned out to be switched off, meaning no one turned it on. And in fact, now all that is available, all the evidence from this interaction, is only what the killers say, who were in military uniform and acted on behalf of the Territorial Recruitment Center and the Joint Staff. Very convenient, as it is said further. No cases have been sent to court for violent actions by the Territorial Recruitment Center and Joint Staff in Dnipro. It is known about any cases sent to court. Oleksiy Dubovik said he does not remember such cases. So we see that the issue here is not even about how many are fakes and how many are not, but the fact that no one wants to punish the recruitment center staff who are actually committing criminal offenses. Very convenient and interesting. When asked about corruption cases at the recruitment center, Dubovik, head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Center, confirmed such cases existed. What we could do, we dealt with ourselves. Those who were caught were sent to combat units. That's the story. So they are not put in prison with confiscation of all their property. They are not given long prison sentences. They are simply sent to combat units. Where later they, find ways to get around things, just like you can get around things everywhere. They do the same there. So we see that this is just ordinary evasion of the law instead of going to prison and serving their sentence for their crimes. A very convenient system has developed overall now. If you have connections, if you put on a military uniform, you basically remain unpunished. No one will do anything to you. That's quite an interesting story. Next, we have now started to control and instruct the alert groups more. He also states how exactly this affected things, but we see that it didn't affect anything, and he also can't say how it affected or how it should affect. Because if, in fact, criminals who don't care about the law are walking around in military uniforms under the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support's authority, you can have as many conversations with them as you want, as many different psychological sessions as you want, but it won't help. It's the same as if you had to talk to someone like Chikatilo. Yes, and not put him in prison or execute him, but just talk to him, saying that you shouldn't do this, you should do it like this. I think if someone is already in prison, they've committed crimes. Such criminal offenses, again like illegal detentions, deprivation, illegal deprivation of liberty, holding a person there somewhere, kidnapping a person right off the street in those territorial recruitment center vans, then such people should automatically go to prison for the crime they committed, abuse of power, and other criminal charges. They shouldn't talk to psychologists or try to sort things out, since we see this as nonsense. That's the main point. Secondly, corruption in the territorial recruitment centers results in people being sent to combat units, but this doesn't reflect what's actually happening there. We have only military veterans serving here, those who have already been to the front and can't serve in combat units anymore, so the information doesn't add up either. That's the story. Moving on. The head of the Dnipro Territorial Recruitment Center says mobilized individuals can use their phones during medical commissions, as these are civilian medical institutions. But when they arrive at the Territorial Recruitment Center or at the assembly point, they are asked to hand over their mobile phones. We see that this is quite an interesting story, but we also see that it does not correspond to reality, because both the Human Rights Ombudsman Dimitro Lubinets and many deputies are reporting that people who end up at the Territorial Recruitment Center have their phones taken away. If you refuse to hand over your phone willingly, you still end up giving it up just under pressure or force. Plus, no one is actually doing anything about it. Next, about balaclavas and about how the Territorial Recruitment Center staff just cover their faces like outright criminals, even though they are officials. And they must be identified, even when communicating with civilians. He says most citizens confuse balaclavas with the uniforms of servicemen. A scarf, a tube. This is how he actually answered the question about whether there is a practice of using balaclavas in the Dnipropetrovsk region. But what's the difference whether it's a balaclava or a scarf, a tube that covers the whole face? When a person can't be identified, there's no difference. In fact, the only thing that matters in this story is let them wear a balaclava, let them even put on a clown mask if they want, and actually that would be quite appropriate. But at the same time, when interacting, they must be identified, they have to show their documents, they have to state their name, and they have to show their face, so that it's clear these documents actually belong to this person. And not some criminal who took a fake document and walks around with it, bothering people on the streets. Next. According to the head of the Regional Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support, Oleksiy Dubovic, those who have been mobilized can freely use their phones during the medical examination. But was that already okay? But at the assembly points, no one gives them anything either. Later, when their phones are taken away after they arrive at the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support, they only get them back in the military units. And this also doesn't match the information of the spokesperson of the Poltava Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support, Istomin, who said that they are forced to confiscate phones from the mobilized because they take pictures of military facilities and post them on social networks. Tell me, please, can't they do the same thing in the military units? Won't they also take pictures of military facilities and upload them to the internet if they've just been herded into these units like cattle? It seems to me the question is simply rhetorical. Yes, and there were a lot of them. We see a lot of such questions that were actually asked. The head of the TCK dodges in exactly the same way, avoiding all direct questions that are asked of him, never giving a clear yes or no answer. and constantly, like a politician, tries to evade. But again, the question remains open as to why the killers of the father of many children were not wearing body cameras, why there is basically no body camera footage from any of the incidents that actually took place. Yes, because he also talked a lot about the fact that there are a lot of attacks on TCK employees in the Dnipropetrovsk region. And in the 25th and already in the 26th year, there have been a very, very large number of attacks on TCK. But for some reason, there isn't a single body camera recording where you can clearly see that it's about attacks on TCK employees. Suddenly, someone approached and began stabbing, fighting, or acting aggressively. There's no confirmation of this. It's just words, just manipulations that I personally don't trust. Why don't I trust them? Because they constantly lie and they've never provided any proof that they're right. That's all you need to understand. Next. During 2025 and 2026, 119 criminal cases were registered against employees of the territorial recruitment centers and social support, 104 in 2025 and 15 in 2026. The State Bureau of Investigation is investigating 36 cases, and the National Police is handling 83 cases. The Specialized Prosecutor's Office received 283 complaints about violations committed by the territorial recruitment centers in the Dnipropetrovsk region. I want to remind you that not a single criminal case or accusation has been brought, and not a single territorial recruitment center employee has been imprisoned. To them. If they are punished at all, it's just reprimands, maybe some fines or the loss of a bonus. That's all that can happen. Besides reprimands, there can be strict reprimands. That's basically all you need to understand about why the Territorial Recruitment Center has actually become a crime hub. Because we remember that impunity breeds even greater impunity, and that in turn leads to chaos and anarchy, crime, and so on. And we see that today, in 2026, this isn't even considered very serious news anymore. If in 2023 every video was reposted by everyone, people were saying, oh my God, what's happening? Then in 2026, we see that such incidents have simply become routine. And the Territorial Center of Recruitment and Social Support guys, basically, don't even hide the fact that they treat people like cattle and they work, I don't know in whose interest, but definitely not in the interests of the Ukrainian state, because cases of crime and violations of the law definitely can't be the foundation of Ukraine's defense capability. What do you think about this? Write in the comments. It will be very interesting to hear and read your opinion. Have a nice day. See you.